The early 2000s were the golden age of cinema, or at least they were for me. It was the perfect sweet spot where technology had advanced enough to create really immersive and visually stunning films, but before the industry started getting bogged down by focus groups, endless reboots, and sanitized political motivated storytelling. Of course, calling it a golden age is totally subjective. If you grew up in the 60s, maybe you think the 70s were peak cinema. Born in the 80s? You probably swear by the 90s. But I was born in the 90s, and for me the 2000s were unmatched. I mean, just look at the lineup. Gladiator, The Dark Knight, 300, Troy, The Lord of the Rings trilogy. And let's not forget about absolute masterpieces like Surf's Up. But it wasn't just the big budget epics that made the era shine. The 2000s were also the playground for deep, mind-bending thrillers that tackled futuristic technology and the ways that it could go horribly, horribly wrong. Movies like Minority Report, I, Robot, The Island, Surrogates, all of them served up stories that were as thought-provoking as they were entertaining. And then there's a movie we're diving into today, Gamer. Released in 2009, Gamer is a sci-fi action thriller that stars Gerard Butler as the gritty and determined protagonist Cable. The movie's set in a near-future world where technology is advanced to the point that people can literally control other humans like video game characters. The story revolves around two games: Slayers, a violent live-action FPS where death row inmates are controlled by players in real-time combat, and Society, a Sims-like simulation where people willingly rent out their bodies for players to control in often disturbing ways. Now, while the film did okay at the box office, critics weren't exactly lining up to sing its praises. I mean, I personally liked it, but be that as it may, Gamer introduces some truly fascinating concepts. The moral and philosophical dilemmas surrounding this kind of technology are worth unpacking, and as a channel that dives deep into gaming culture, this movie feels like the perfect jumping off point for a much larger conversation. So let's get into it. Slayers is the dystopian brainchild of insert billionaire tech genius, yada yada yada. You've heard it all before. Basically, it's a live-action first-person shooter where death row inmates are used as real-life avatars. Players control these inmates remotely through advanced brain implant technology. Does it sound familiar? We'll get to that later. Basically, it turns them into pawns in a really high-stakes game of survival. And if an inmate survives 30 matches, they win their freedom. Enter Gerard Butler's character, Cable, a death row inmate turned star combatant in Slayers. Controlled by Simon, a cocky 17-year-old gamer hailed as the best in the world, Cable becomes the game's most popular character after surviving a record 27 matches. But what makes Cable so compelling is that he isn't just a faceless avatar, but a real human who's fighting to be reunited with his wife and child. Now, unlike other inmates, Cable can communicate directly with the player who controls him, Simon, thanks to an underground activist group known as Humans. They hack the system, essentially allowing Cable to send messages mid-game to Simon. In doing so, Simon develops a relationship with Cable, and for the first time he sees him as a real human, with emotions and people who love him and care about him. Eventually, Cable convinces Simon to relinquish control during the game, which gives him a chance at escape. Now, while Cable fights for survival in Slayers, his wife Angie is trapped in an equally dehumanizing game called Society. Unlike Slayers, Society is a Sims-like simulation where real people rent out their bodies to be controlled by paying players. The results are often bizarre, grotesque, and deeply unsettling as the controllers indulge their darkest and most perverse fantasies. Angie, desperate to provide for their daughter after Cable's incarceration, becomes a character in Society. She's controlled by a sleazy, overweight gamer who uses her body to navigate the chaotic and depraved virtual world. Although Slayers and Society are vastly different in genre, it is in essence that they are both the same. Both exploit human beings for entertainment, but Society takes it a step further by showing how willingly people can surrender control and autonomy for money. This subplot adds emotional weight to Cable's story. His wife almost has her hand forced into this decision to be able to provide for her daughter, a situation the viewer can at least sympathize with. She's another casualty of this dystopian world where technology and morality have gone off the rails. And I guess what I found so captivating with the plot of Gamer was that it's a mirror held up to some of the darkest corners of human nature. At its core, the film forces us to confront the moral and philosophical dilemmas that arise when technology allows us to control the autonomy of other human beings. And if you think this is just far-fetched sci-fi, well, stick around because we're going to explore how close we are to making some of these technologies a reality. But first, let's think about the ethical implications of Slayers. These inmates, regardless of their crimes, are stripped of any autonomy, reduced to mere avatars for the entertainment of a bloodthirsty audience. I'm getting Hunger Games vibes here. It's a chilling commentary on how easily society can dehumanize people under the guise of justice or entertainment. If you think about it, it's gladiatorial combat reimagined for the digital age. Although at least in the Colosseum, the gladiators were in control of their own actions, which although doesn't make it that much better, still seems more right. Like, at least they had the ability to die fighting under their own strength. In Slayers, you lose that ability. That right to die fighting. That's taken away from you as you become nothing more than an expendable NPC used to stimulate the bloodlust of some sweaty teenage kid. And then there's society, which explores a different but equally disturbing angle. People willingly giving up their autonomy for financial gain. Unlike Slayers, where participation offers a potential way out of death row, albeit a nearly impossible one, society shows a world where individuals consent to being controlled, often due to economic necessity. The moral question here is haunting. If someone chooses to give up control, is it truly consensual if the alternative is poverty or starvation? The game exposes the cruelty of exploiting people at their lowest points, reducing their value and human dignity to a mere commodity that can be bought and sold. The players, safe behind their screens, are detached from the real-world consequences of their actions, treating their avatars as disposable. Sound familiar? Well, it's not a far cry from the anonymity and detachment we already see on social media and in gaming communities today. And then there's the big one. If technology like this existed, would it bring out the worst in humanity? Well, gamers suggest that when given the power to control others without accountability, people lean into their basest impulses. It's a stark warning about the ethical vacuum that can arise when power, profit, and entertainment converge. Now, let's hone in this dystopian concept and bring it back to reality. While we don't have the exact technology depicted in Gamer, elements of it are disturbingly close. From people being controlled by their chat on Twitch, to individuals selling their bodies for money, and even technological advancements like Neuralink, the lines between fiction and possibility are starting to blur. Take the modern phenomenon of online influencers and live streamers, for instance. Many streamers have built their careers by interacting with their audiences in real time, allowing followers to dictate their decisions through donation-driven challenges or live polls. While these streamers have the power to choose their actions, it's clear that the line between entertaining performance and exploitation can easily blur. Sure, they willingly hand over some autonomy for the sake of engagement, but in doing so, they often act like clowns, pushing boundaries or indulging in risky, dangerous behavior just to stay relevant and maintain views. They undertake actions they clearly would never do had it not been for the faceless crowd egging them on. Is it really that hard to imagine these people giving up control completely if it means fame and money? This behavior serves as an unsettling stepping stone to the kind of control depicted in Slayers. While streamers have agency and free will in these interactions, the bigger question is what this trend signifies for the future, where, as in Slayers, control could be outsourced to external forces or technology. Then there's the concept of selling oneself, which society explores with disturbing clarity. Adult content platforms and services draw direct parallels to the world depicted in society. While individuals may choose to engage in these industries out of their own intent and desire for financial gain or personal empowerment, it's clear that, like in society, they're commodifying their bodies. The difference here, though, is that in society, people's actions are controlled directly by someone else, whereas in the real world, these individuals still, for the most part, maintain autonomy. Now, whatever the reason someone may use to justify partaking in such a line of work is besides the point. I think what is the more pressing issue is the deep moral ambiguity these services present, and the stark similarity to the reality presented in the movie. While the technology in the film isn't here yet, the concept is eerily close to modern reality. The idea of trading control of one's body, whether by choice or because one feels they have no other viable option, isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. The similarities are clear. Both worlds commodify the human body, and the distinction between voluntary participation and control is a slippery one. And finally, we come to Neuralink and similar emerging technologies. Neuralink, the brainchild of Elon Musk, aims to create a direct interface between the human brain and computers. While the initial goals are medical, helping people with paralysis, for example, it raises significant ethical concerns. If we can control technology with our minds, who's to say technology can't eventually control us? It's not a stretch to imagine a future where such devices could manipulate thoughts, memories, or even actions. The potential for misuse is staggering, especially if this technology falls into the wrong hands or is monetized without strict ethical oversight. At its core, like most radically advanced tech, Neuralink presents a double-edged sword. One side offering immense possibilities for human enhancement and medical breakthroughs, while the other teeters on the brink of exploitation and manipulation. Just as society portrays avatars being shaped and controlled by unseen forces, Neuralink's potential to alter the way we think and behave could mirror this dynamic, only in real life. What happens when we, as individuals, individuals allow such intimate access to our minds, believing it's for our benefit, but unknowingly compromising our autonomy in the process. The real danger lies in how such technologies could be used for profit, entertainment, or social control. Imagine a future where our thoughts, desires, or even our actions could be influenced by external algorithms or corporations with a financial stake in our choices. Today, we see companies leveraging huge amounts of data to target consumers with ever more precise advertisements. But what if they could go beyond simply selling us products? What if they could influence how we think, what we value, or even how we feel about ourselves and the world around us? The ethical boundaries are murky, and with the promise of immense wealth and power, it's not hard to imagine a world where technology, like Neuralink, becomes a tool of control rather than liberation. The slippery slope from voluntary participation to being subtly shaped by external forces is a real and present concern, and one that requires careful consideration before we blindly rush into this brave new world. In all these examples, the central theme is the erosion of autonomy. Whether it's through social pressure, financial desperation, or technological manipulation, we are inching closer to the moral dilemmas presented in Gamer. The question isn't just whether we can create these systems, it's whether we should. In the end, the themes of control, autonomy, and exploitation aren't just confined to society or speculative science fiction. They're reflections on the direction our world's heading. Whether it's influencers being subtly swayed by their audience, the commodification of the human body in the name of profit, or the looming potential of technologies like Neuralink, we find ourselves grappling with the same question. How much control are we willing to surrender, and how much of ourselves are we willing to trade for comfort, fame, or survival? The unsettling reality is that, in many ways, we're already living in a version of society where the boundaries between autonomy and exploitation are becoming increasingly blurred. The key difference is that we're not just watching it unfold on screen anymore, we're participants in this evolving narrative. As these technologies and societal structures advance, the lines between free will and manipulation will only become more difficult to discern. The question we must ask ourselves is, are we in control of the choices we make, or are we merely playing roles in a system that benefits from our compliance? The answer may not be clear yet, but one thing's certain, we're heading toward a future that requires us to think critically, question deeply, and guard our autonomy fiercely, before we find ourselves trapped in a reality where what seems like choice is really just an illusion. So what do you think? Is Gamer just a wild sci-fi movie, or is it a disturbingly accurate prediction of where we're headed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think technology like this would ever exist? And if it did, how would society handle it? If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more deep dives into gaming, movies, and the crazy intersection of tech and philosophy, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the post notifications button. It really helps the channel grow and keeps these conversations going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.